Boost mode.
To be honest, I'm pretty sure you never quit. I mean, it's like you never quit.
What's going on, everybody? So the other weekend, we went to our first drone race in over 3 years. Now, this wasn't just any normal type of drone race. It was a Street League Spec race. Now, you may be wondering, what exactly is Street League? Well, let's go through the spec. So, Street League is a 7-inch spec series where you have to meet the following requirements. First, the frame you fly has to be open source. You have to use a 5S 2200 milliamp battery, and you either have to fly with a specific Gem Fan or HQ Street League rated props. And your quad has to meet an all-up weight of 1,280 grams. So this is a very heavy 7-inch quad. What makes Street League itself different from a lot of other spec races is the fact that they have their own special version of Betaflight that you have to install. In this version, they have certain features like an RPM limiter that limits your total motor output, as well as a special boost feature, which we'll kind of get into later. But once you meet all these requirements, you're good to go. But there was only one problem. I did not have a street legal quad.
He doesn't have a street legal quad.
All I have is this tiny trainer that I built to rip around the backyard. And don't get me wrong, this thing flies good, but it's not street legal. That's why I want to give a shout out to Flyboy and his dad. Not only did they hook me up with one of their backup quads to fly, but they also provided batteries and props so I can get back on the flight line. I've never flown a 7-inch quad before, let alone a street league quad. And with the way my work schedule was going, there was absolutely no way, no chance that I was going to be able to get any practice time in with this quad before the day of the race. So I had no idea what to expect from the quad on race day, let alone how my body would react dealing with the pressure and the race nerves. And considering it's been 3 years since I've last experienced that, honestly I have no idea what I was getting myself into. But here we are. After a 4-hour drive, we pull up to the track, and I see the gate standing in the field, and almost immediately, I get this feeling that was kind of strange, but somewhat familiar. Now, if you've ever competed in a drone race, you know exactly what this feeling is, and I'm sure you can relate. But if you haven't, it's like this overwhelming feeling of adrenaline coursing through your veins. There's just something about being on the flight line and waiting for those tones to drop. Hearing the screams of the quad as they just take off full power with the sole purpose of nothing but winning that race. Yeah, I definitely missed this. So after going through and passing a spec check, it was time to start racing. And the weather was a little cloudy, it was a little rainy, but we did not let that stop us from throwing down. I wrapped my quad up in electrical tapes and we were good to go. Alright, so here we are in the first race. I put my goggles down, my fingers are on the sticks, and we are waiting for those tones to drop. The countdown begins, those tones sound, and for the first time in 3 years, I slam that throttle stick forward, and this quad, heavy-ass quad, just screams right off the flight line. I didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't know how the quad was going to respond, how it was going to feel on the track, but here we are. Racing a street league quad. It's definitely not as fast as an open racer, but it still had enough power to make it controllable. It only took a few laps to get used to the weight and the power of the quad before I found my fingers moving the sticks and navigating the track really without much thought. It was quite weird to fly full throttle the whole time, but it was honestly quite fun. Before I knew it, we were several rounds into qualifying, and I was sitting in 4th place, just shy of 3rd. Honestly, I was doing a lot better than I expected, considering it's been such a long time since I've raced, and I'm flying something completely new to me. Now, there is one section of the track that I was having trouble with, and that was the reverse split S. So I found myself clipping the side of the gate on several occasions. I knew I needed to give more roll input to make the turn, but that was a lot easier said than done. I was giving way too much yaw in the turn, and that was causing me to drift off to the side and collide with the side panel of the gate. It took several more packs to get this section of the track down. There was a lot of pre-turn going into this gate, and honestly, a lot of it boiled down to just luck. So after qualifying was over, I realized I was able to land all my packs and finish all my heats. And that made me feel quite good because that showed I was flying consistent. And with it being my first race in such a long time, consistency was my biggest worry. But I did end up holding on to that 4th place spot at the end of qualifying. So now it was time for brackets. And these brackets were single elimination. And that means there is absolutely no room for error. So I was feeling pretty confident in my sticks and the quad. They say your goal should be to place higher than you qualify, but honestly, my goal had already been met for the day. Just fly good. So regardless of my finishing position in brackets, I had already reached my goal for the day. But I still wanted to do the best that I could. So now, it was time to push. But before we go into brackets, I want to talk a little something about boost mode. So boost mode is special to the Street League version of Betaflight. When you hit a switch, you get an extra 1,000 RPM that lasts for 5 seconds. It's literally like hitting the NOS button on a drag car. But the only limitation is you can only use it 3 times per heat, and that limitation is built into the flight control software. So up until this point, my strategy was to use the boost coming out of the gates in the first section around the flags and into the triple, as I felt that was the most open area of the track and the best way to utilize boost to get that extra speed. But I wasn't sure if I wanted to stick to that strategy or not going into brackets. But here we are in the first bracket. Remember, it's single elimination, so I only get 1 chance to lose, and you gotta do 4 laps. I know that I just have to do the best that I can to win this race. So the tones drop and I am full throttle off the block. I'm navigating several obstacles and I noticed that there is no quad in front of me. And that only made the pressure worse because now I know I have to stay and maintain this position through the rest of the race. I just try to take a few breaths and focus on my lines and just focus on finishing out this race. In this bracket, I used the same boost strategy as I did in qualifying, and that worked perfect because I was able to complete my 4 laps and finish this race in first place. So that moved me on to the next bracket. In the next bracket, I find myself still in the lead. I do have a little fumble on the reverse split S-gate, which does throw me off course, but I'm able to save it, get my quad back on the track, and continue the race. So as I'm midway through my second lap, I just hear this loud crash, and I realize 2 quads just mid-aired and are laying on the ground. They're not able to get back up. So I knew it was only me and 1 other pilot in the air, and I knew he wasn't that far behind me as I could see him as I transitioned between gates. I knew I had to fly clean lines and keep my quad in the air, because any little mistake would be the difference between moving on to this next bracket and getting eliminated. But I was able to overcome it and finish this race in first place, which moved me into the finals bracket. So here we are in the final bracket. It is Chase the Ace format. Proximo, Bernie FPV, and myself. And since it was a Chase the Ace final, we race until 1 pilot wins twice. So the tones drop and we shoot off that start block. Coming around the flag before the start gate, I can tell that I'm in the lead. I'm pushing as hard as I can through that first section of the track, and I'm just trying to take good lines with good pre-turn. I hit the boost coming around the flag section to get more speed in the triple, and as I'm coming around the corkscrew, I notice something in the left side of my screen. It's Proximo, and he literally just blows right past me, up and over the tree section. I use my boost to try to catch up, but he takes a tighter line coming into the tree, and I just cannot catch him. At this point, the nerves are just running through my body, which causes me to make a mistake on the reverse split S. I end up hitting the side of it, which shoots me back, but I'm able to recover the quad and get it back online. The rest of this heat went fairly smooth, and I finished in second place. Of course, Proximo got the first ace. So in the second round of Chase the Ace, the tones drop, and Proximo just blasts right off the start block, followed by me, then Bernie FPV. If Proximo gets this race, it's all over. So me and Bernie are doing everything we can to catch up to him. The first section of the track goes very smooth, but I know Bernie is right on my ass. I end up blowing out the turn in the triple section, and Bernie passes me because he takes such a tight line. The rest of this heat, I am just trying to catch up. Proximo ends up securing the second ace, while Bernie FPV crosses the finish line in second place, followed by me in third. But just when I thought it was all over, me and Bernie has to do a race-off because we are tied for second place. And it all comes down to this, the last race to determine second place. Will it be Bernie or will it be me? The tones drop and we shoot off the line. Bernie passes me, I pass him, he passes me back, and we're literally neck and neck throughout this race. So Bernie did end up winning that race, which secured him second spot on the podium, and I ended up taking third. And honestly, it worked out a lot better than what I thought it was going to. It was my first race in 3 years. I was flying a drone I have never flown before, and it was just an awesome experience. The Street League Spec is a lot of fun, and I am definitely hooked. But I really enjoy spec racing, and Street League, well, Street League is bringing me back. All in all, it was a great race, and getting to experience the Street League Spec as my first race back has definitely got me hooked. And since I'm recording this video post-race, I actually went ahead and built a Street League quad, which I will be racing in another Street League race we have coming up next week. So stay tuned for that. You definitely don't want to miss it. So if you want to see more videos like this in the future of racing and spec racing, hit that subscribe button. I would very much so appreciate it. And until then, stay tuned.